Hello, my name is Isaac, and I'm going to talk about how I became a software developer. My journey is definitely different than some and longer than a lot of people's, but in the end, I became a developer. First, let's start off with my education. I did go to college. I went to community college for 2 years and then transferred to a university and got a computer information systems bachelor degree. My degree consisted of some computer networking kind of stuff, a bunch of coding classes, there's some database stuff, and a lot of business classes. I took accounting, finance, you name it, project management, and a lot of these things I do believe led to my success as a professional in the IT field and becoming a software developer. During college, I built a couple applications, nothing crazy, but I did some stuff with my friends, some stuff in a couple of my classes, some simple CRUD applications, things like that. I attended hackathons, and played a lot of video games. I also had multiple internships. I had a help desk position. I had a more kind of infrastructure internship kind of thing where I did do some help desk stuff, but I also got into a bunch of server things like that, helped set up server racks, stuff like that, which was a lot of fun. And the reason I kind of had internships like this is because I had more understanding of that before even coming into university. So I found it much easier to get internships in that area. And it turned out these things proved to be incredibly useful as my career progressed. Yeah, so with those 3 internships, I learned a ton about how systems work and how networks are arranged. And even if I didn't know everything by the end of those things, it was definitely a wonderful stepping stone. I worked in some Active Directory, I worked with Microsoft Exchange, I handled HIPAA information, all these kind of things are really good things to know how to do. Even if you're not working in them, you understand what happens in a company and your knowledge can prove useful. But the biggest piece that I took away from these internships was how to talk to people. I learned how to take complex tasks or tasks that would be considered complex to people with less knowledge and break them down into smaller segments that are easier for them to understand. Instead of just being the person who was learning all the time, I also wanted to be the person who was teaching. I wanted to be someone who could go to someone who's having an issue and say, hey, I would be happy to help you fix your issue, but I also want to tell you how you can avoid this in the future so you don't need to come back. Not only for me, because I don't really want to do this again, but for you as well, because it's a headache. So this is something that became invaluable as I moved up in my career and even into development, where I could communicate this to people on my team, people in my company who I was just lending a simple hand. People love learning things. All right, fast forward to 2020. I'm about to graduate and COVID hits. The end of the world. Luckily, I had a hardware support internship that was going really well. I could continue to work. I worked remotely some, but I also worked in the office. Computers still needed to be shipped out. Things still needed to be dealt with in person, and I was the boots on the ground along with a couple other of my teammates. I worked my butt off. I mean, that's just what had to happen. I needed a job, okay? If you remember, the world was going crazy. I needed a job. I needed some security. And so I worked my butt off because I knew that there was a position opening up soon for a full-time position. And I wanted that. I needed it. I didn't have much else going for me at that time. That was what I was gunning for. And so I did jobs that other people didn't want to do. There was a huge stack of laptops that was just sitting there that needed to be gone through. Which ones worked, which ones didn't. Let's put Windows on ones that didn't have anything. Let's wipe things. Let's figure out which ones can be put back into our fleet of laptops that can be used for people. Things like that. I also just organized stuff, and I made a well-oiled machine inside of our office building of how to ship out new hire. Pieces of equipment, all that stuff. And you know what? I got the job offer in May, so just a couple months later. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, no, wait just a second. I clicked on this video because I want to know how to become a software developer, or I want to know how you became a software developer. What is this hardware support, help desk, mumbo jumbo, boring crap have to do with anything? And that's fair. This might not be the most interesting story of how I joined a FAANG company straight out of college, and I'm in this elite level professional and programmer, but it's my story and it's a real one. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Like, this is how some people's professional careers work. It's not all glitz and glamour, living in an apartment in San Francisco. Sometimes it's just you get out of school, you find a job, and you move up from there. And that's what I did. So stay tuned. You're going to be seeing exactly how this stuff went. Sometimes it takes months for people to get something. Sometimes it takes years. So just hold on, and I will get to the part you're looking for. But I hope this section in between encourages you to keep going if you're struggling. So I worked as a technical support specialist for almost 2 years. I was a Mac admin. I handled all of the stuff that happened with, Apple computers and stuff. I was the third most senior person on the team at this point. Some people had left. We brought in some new people. I trained up new people. I supported the executive team, with the majority of their issues. The CEO, I was in his office like every day. Not even a joke. Could have been any little small thing. I was there. I was in the C-suite all the time. I showed great promise on how much effort I was putting in here, and I really wanted to move up. I even got a Network Plus certification during this time. I was interested, and I was gunning for a sysadmin position. But my company didn't need any more of those. They weren't hiring any more of those. I wanted to move up and maybe be a senior tech support specialist or something, just kind of feel like I'm moving up the ladder a little bit. No bandwidth, no money for any of that stuff. But what did happen was on the other side, we had counterparts called software support specialists, and those guys worked with SQL, and they were doing some code stuff, really, really cool stuff that I was interested in, but I didn't have the opportunity to do. So I applied internally, and I got the job. It helped that I applied internally. I already knew the people who were over there, but it was an amazing jump for me. My pay went up over $10,000. I was able to work remotely full-time if I wanted to. I liked going in the office to see people, but, the majority of the time I worked from home. And I was able to be, with my wife and then soon-to-be daughter at that point. It was a fantastic change for me. Really increased my quality of life and everything. And, just absolutely perfect. What's absolutely wild about this, though, is I applied at the same company for a software developer internship, which kind of worked with this team previously mentioned here, the software support guys and the developers. I applied for that back in the fall of 2019, and I was the runner-up. I knew the guy who ended up getting it, very happy for him, and he ended up becoming a developer there. And the reason these positions were open was because these people moved up and became developers. It was a fantastic opportunity. So I was so excited to move into this role. I got exposure to SQL. I got exposure to PHP. I got exposure to JavaScript. I got exposure to ASP. I know. I got exposure to Vue.js, which was incredible. Golang. Like, all of these things are just incredible pieces of technology that are used everywhere. Like, you're going to find a place that uses one of these things, 100%. I learned how to release code. I learned how to test code. This stuff, I was pretty much doing a junior developer role at this point, with just a bunch of support tickets on the side of like, hey, I need to push this through. Something's not working. Go in the back end on SQL and change something. It was a great job. So I was in the software support specialist role for almost 2 years. And at this point, I was ready to go to a developer role. But guess what? Yup. My company was not able to bring me on as a developer. I had a couple teammates who were interested. They couldn't either. We were just at a rough point. In fact, they were letting people go. At this point. And I was in a tough spot. I knew that I had job security because the work I was doing needed to get done. And they had me, who had been doing it for a couple years, and knew it inside and out. So, but I wasn't happy with that anymore. I knew I was ready and I wanted to move up. So I started applying for jobs. Luckily, I had been in the industry for a couple years now, and I had some good connections. Networking is important, guys. If you're not doing it, you need to. Get out there, find some people in your area who are doing these things, connect with them. I mean, heck, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Reddit. I mean, there's all sorts of places out there where you can find people. Locally would be ideal, of course, if you want to find people in your area, but there are tons of places to do it. If you have any good places, please feel free to leave it in the comments of places that you found it a good way to network. LinkedIn, of course, can't forget about that one. So I had an old boss of mine who was hiring for a junior software developer position, and I thought that was perfect. Thought that was exactly what I needed, so I ended up applying. I had like 3 or 4 interviews. I took a little assessment test home kind of thing where I just pretty much had to take my favorite language, connect to an API, do some things with the API, have some error handling and some checking, to make sure that you stayed within the parameters of the task. It wasn't too bad. They just wanted to make sure that you knew what you were doing generally. They wanted a year experience-ish, a year or less, and I fit that bill perfectly. So I went through all of that, and I ended up getting the job, and that was another 10K boost. So I had technical support specialist, and then I moved to software support specialist, 10K boost. Then I moved from software support specialist to junior software developer, another 10K boost. So, and 2 of those were in the same company. And then from that company, I knew someone who went to another company, and I joined them. So that's kind of how my stepping stones went. I went from intern to full-time, hardware to software, and then from this software support specialist job to a software developer job. And that's the current role that I'm in, and I'm loving it. I can work fully remote. I've made enough money now that I have purchased a house with my wife, and we moved out to a smaller place, and we're having a lot of fun being out here, being new homeowners. So I realized this might be slightly anticlimactic for some of you out there, and seeing how I got this job from people I knew, you might go, well, I can't do that. Well, you can. We all know the saying, it's not just what you know, it's who you know. And however corny that may be, it's true, and it's important to remember. Also, just take your time in your career path. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither is your professional career. So just take it slow, take your time, learn a new technology, learn a new language, take a little bit of time to increase your skill set, and I promise you there is a job out there for you. It might not be with all the bells and whistles you want right away, but you can work your way up to that. I worked my way up to this, and looking back, 4 or 5 years ago, I would not believe where I am right now. If I was to look forward and someone were to tell me that I would be here, I wouldn't believe them. So I think another huge thing to remember too is just learn how to carry yourself, learn how to articulate yourself properly, learn how to speak to people. And if you're in a networking situation, if someone remembers a conversation with you because of how well you spoke with them, that's huge. That's a great way to just get your foot in the door, have them remember you and go, oh yeah, that Isaac guy, we had a great conversation at X conference or whatever. Perfect. My name's already in their mind, and that's a great first step. Anyway, I'll stop blabbing on. I just wanted to share some insight on to how I became a developer, in the hopes that you feel encouraged or even maybe validated if you've been watching a lot of the videos on YouTube of how people became developers right out of college or within 6 months of teaching themselves. That doesn't work for everybody. Not everybody can do that. Those are incredible stories. But everyone is different, and everything takes time. So be patient with yourself and believe in yourself, because you can do it. And I believe in you. I'll see you in the comments. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Take care.